Hello again. Today I wanted to do a quick rundown of the characters in Romeo and Juliet. There are a lot of characters. And so by doing a quick run through, it will probably help you keep track of them better. This is especially important if you like doing what I like doing, which is watching more than one version of the play. Oftentimes, I will watch the same scene from more than one version and kind of just see what different directors do with the play. So I want to kind of show you some basic memory tips that I've got that are going to help you keep the characters straight in Romeo and Juliet. So here we've got a character tree that somebody came up with, and I went and I updated it so that the pictures of the most important characters, in my opinion, are in color. Okay. We've got over here on the left side, the Montague family, and over here on the right side, the Capulet family. And as you probably recall from some of the summaries or videos you've seen so far, the main conflict of this story, every good story is based on a good conflict, is that the Capulets and the Montagues hate each other's guts. They want each other dead. They fight all the time, and people have already died as a result of this fight or feud between the two families. So over on the Montague side, Romeo is a Montague, okay, and his parents actually don't get any names in the play. They're just Lord and Lady Montague, or Montague and Lady Montague, okay? So they are in charge of the family. Romeo is their son. Then we have Romeo's friends, Mercutio and Benvolio. Now, Benvolio is actually Romeo's cousin. And Mercutio is not a member of the family. He is actually a relative of the prince and Romeo's close friend. But in this fight between the Montagues and the Capulets, Mercutio takes Romeo's side. He takes Romeo's family's side because he's friends with Romeo. Then we've got this girl, Rosaline. We never actually see her in the play, so that's why there's a question mark on her face. But she is, at the beginning of the play, Romeo's crush slash current obsession. So he's busy moping when Benvolio asks him, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm just having such a hard time because I love Rosaline and she doesn't love me back. I believe she wants to be a nun. It's kind of hard to date someone if they want to be a nun. Then, of course, on the other side, we've got the Capulets. Okay, Capulets are the family that the Montagues hate. Juliet is a Capulet, and once again, her mom and dad don't get names in this play. They're just Capulet or Lord Capulet and Lady Capulet. Okay, Juliet is about 14 years old, which you might say is a bit young to be getting married. And you'd be right. Even in Shakespeare's time, that was a bit young for girls to get married. But this play is set in ancient Italy. It might not have been as strange back then. I mean, people did not live as long, so they tended to get married earlier and have kids earlier. So Juliet's dad, Lord Capulet, wants to set up Juliet with this guy down here, whose name is Paris. Somehow his name is not on this chart. That's problematic. Okay, but his name is Paris, just like the city in France, Paris. Okay, Paris is just a nice guy. He's also a relative of the prince. He's not as strongly in this feud as, say, Mercutio is. Mercutio definitely hates the Capulets because Romeo does, or Romeo's family does. Paris is more just like, I actually, come to think of it, Romeo doesn't really hate the Capulets either. Especially not after he falls in love with Juliet, Capulet's daughter. But yeah, Juliet's dad wants to set up Paris with Juliet. And back in the day, if you were a girl, you pretty much did not have any choice in who you were going to marry, most likely, especially if you came from a more rich family, as Romeo and Juliet both did. People would marry off their kids for strategic reasons in order to preserve power within the family. So yeah, Juliet pretty much would have to go along with what her parents said and marry this guy, or, well, she didn't really have a choice. I mean, she could like run away from home and be homeless and like scrounge for food in people's garbage cans or something. But I mean, there were not a lot of options back then, unfortunately. Okay. Down here we have the nurse, Juliet's nurse. Another way of saying that is nursemaid. So back in the day, rich people didn't like to have to take care of their own babies. It was just, that sounds kind of callous, but it was kind of just a social like norms. So Juliet's mother, after she has Juliet, she's like, "Oh, I don't want to have to feed my own kid. That's gross," or something. So they hire a woman who had a baby at about the same time and is currently able to feed the babies, if you know what I mean. Okay, and hires her to take care of Juliet. So the nurse is kind of like a combination of a maid and servant, but also kind of like a nanny slash extra mom. The nurse in this play is one of my favorite characters because she's dumb. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. She just is. She does not know how to keep her mouth shut. Maybe you have a friend like that. And so they'll ask the nurse really basic, simple questions, and she will like launch off into these crazy stories about whatever. Like the first time you see Juliet, it's her mom and the nurse talking about Juliet and how it's maybe time for her to get married. Ugh. And the mom's like, "Hey, how old is Juliet again?" Because apparently she doesn't know. Bad parenting. And the nurse is like, "Oh, well, I'd say she's almost 14. Yeah, that reminds me of when she was a baby. Oh, she's grown up so fast. And there was an earthquake." And she starts launching into this weird story about like breastfeeding Juliet, and there's an earthquake and other things. It's pretty random. And the mom basically has to tell her to shut up. She's like, "Hold thy peace," which is a fancy way of saying shut up. So the nurse is one of my favorite characters in this play just because she's so off the wall. Mercutio is actually another character who provides a lot of comic relief in this play. He is very sarcastic and quite witty and smart. So when Romeo is busy dragging his feet because he's like, "Oh, Rosaline, oh, Rosaline," Benvolio and Mercutio convince Romeo to help them crash this party that Juliet's family's throwing, right? And Mercutio tries to cheer up Romeo by saying all these random, like imaginative stuff about, "Oh, maybe you've been like enchanted by fairies. Yeah, there's this one, she comes at night and she like leaves stuff in your house and da da da." And he just starts telling this crazy story to try to get his friend distracted, good friend stuff. So they're two of my favorite characters, but I mean, a lot of characters in this play actually give comic relief at various times. Like Juliet's dad gives a list of invited names to go to his party to the servant, and then he walks off, and the servant is basically says, "Gee, it sure would be nice if I knew how to read. Then I could invite these people to this party." Okay, down here, also on the Capulet side, we have Tybalt. He is Juliet's cousin, and he is a hot-headed troublemaker. He is going to be the cause of a lot of problems in this play because he cannot control his temper. And those are all the characters that are in color except for this guy in the middle. Okay, Friar Lawrence is a completely neutral party. He is a friar, or in other words, like a priest in the church, I believe the Catholic Church, because it's Italy. And he is a friend of both Romeo and Juliet. These two families might hate each other, but everybody goes to church. When they're not trying to kill each other, they're busy praying and trying to be like righteous or like pretend righteous and stuff. So he knows everybody in the town, I would assume, who comes to the church and comes to confess to him. And he's going to be kind of the secret connection between Romeo and Juliet. Because, I mean, they don't have phones. What do you do if you meet someone and you fall in love with them and your family wants them dead? You got to figure out like a go-between guy. The nurse also kind of fulfills that role because she is basically Juliet's best friend slash extra mom. And so she is trusted with secrets for a while. Then we have some other characters down here. The Prince of Verona, Prince Aeschylus, doesn't show up a lot in the play, but he's near the beginning. He helps to break up a fight between the Capulets and the Montagues and threatens that if the fight continues, that he will execute somebody. Friar John's just another random priest who will have an important job. An apothecary is basically kind of like a druggist. He makes medicines and stuff. He will be more near the end of the play. We got Abraham and Balthazar, Gregory and Samson. Those are the four servants at the beginning of the play who break into the fight. And we also have this guy named Peter, who is the nurse's servant, and she is not very nice to him. So yeah, those are the main characters in this play. I actually made a version that is colorized so you can see as far as alliances go, right? All the blue guys like each other, all the purple guys like each other, more or less. And now a quick couple of memory tricks, and then we're done here. Okay, so sometimes it's really hard to keep track of all these names, especially the guys near the bottom. But I noticed something that I'm going to throw out. So over on the Montague side, you're going to notice something about our friend Romeo. Okay, both of his friends have a name that ends with a similar sound. So you have Mercutio You have Benvolio, right? Romeo, Mercutio, Benvolio. That is a way to remember that those guys are all connected, right? They're all buddies. Over on the Capulet side, if you notice, Juliet, Capulet, whoops, let's make it look right. That actually rhymes, okay? So that's an easy way to remember that she's a Capulet and not a Montague. And you will also notice that Tybalt doesn't, oops, let's spell things correctly, okay? Doesn't end exactly the same, but it does end with a T. Juliet, Tybalt, Capulet, okay? That can hopefully help you to remember that they're on the same side. I know when I first started this play, it was tricky at first to keep track of all the different characters and their allegiances. It's almost like a soap opera that way. But this can kind of help you to keep track of that. And I'm going to be uploading this chart to Canvas as well. So while you're watching the play, if you ever get confused about who's connected to who, you can pause and refer to this and it'll help you out. Anyway, I'm really excited for you to be able to get into this play. All of the characters are very interesting in their own ways. They all have different motivations for doing the things that they do. And as this fight with blood and violence between the Montagues and the Capulets starts to escalate, you will see that the relationships between different characters also change. Thanks for watching.